week 15 of the fantasy football season. And here's a few running backs I would drop this week. The first guy, Jefferson of the Detroit Lions. A lot of people ran out to the waiver wire over the weekend before the week 14 game got on its way with Denver and the Detroit Lions. Because Jamar Jefferson, he was supposed to be the number one guy over there in the backfield, but we saw Craig Reynolds mostly get the workload there. And Dan Cano came out and said that he wasn't fully healthy, was Jamar Jefferson, and that's why he got no carries in the ball game at the Denver Broncos. So Swift, maybe he'll come back. Williams, maybe he'll come back from COVID. But right now, Craig Reynolds is, in my opinion, Jefferson on the depth chart anyway. So Jefferson here, like I mentioned, we saw some decent games out of him early in the year. Week 8 versus Philly, 2 carries, 6 yards, a touchdown, 4 catches, 23 yards. And then week 10 at Pittsburgh, 3 carries, 41 yards, and a touchdown. But now he's been out in that week 14 matchup when he had an opportunity to play. And now Jamal Williams, I think, will come back in week 14. And this guy, there's no reason to own him. He's going to be the third or fourth running back once again on the depth chart in Detroit. And he's an easy drop this week after misled information that he was going to get a big workload versus Denver, and he didn't because he wasn't healthy. The next guy's Jeff Wilson Jr. of the San Francisco 49ers. So he was a hot pickup towards the end of last week into the game on Sunday. So Wilson here owned in 64% of fantasy leagues, and he didn't do much with the big opportunity, obviously, with Eli Mitchell out, 13 carries, 56 yards, and Hasty was in on most pass downs. So right here, looks like Eli Mitchell should be back, and Mitchell's going to have a monster matchup versus the Atlanta Falcons that give up a ton of fantasy points to running backs on the season if he comes off that knee and concussion. So right here, he did have 13 carries with Wilson. We saw Deebo Samuel get a few handoffs, including a touchdown as well. I think from like 15, 20 yards out, he ran the ball in. So right here, Jeff Wilson, he just didn't look that explosive in this ball game versus Cincinnati. And with Mitchell coming back, there's no reason to have him on your roster. He's going to go back to being the backup over there in San Francisco. And even if he does start once again next week, Deebo Samuel could run a lot as well in that backfield. And we saw yesterday with Hasty mixed in. So right now, I think Jeff Wilson is an easy drop this week. And the third and final running back I would drop this week, Dontrell Hilliard of the Tennessee Titans. So I'm not going to lie, Dontrell Hilliard, he showed some flashes for a few games here. But in the week 14 matchup versus the Jacksonville Jaguars, we didn't see anything from him. 6 carries, 13 yards, and 2 targets with no catches. So week 11 and 12 were his big days. Week 11 versus Houston, 7 carries, 35 yards, 8 catches, 47 yards. And week 12 at the New England Patriots, 12 carries, 131 rush yards, a touchdown, a catch for 2 yards, and a fumble loss. So right here, Jeremy McNichols came back. He got a decent workload. And Foreman obviously is the between the tackles and first and second down back over there in Tennessee. So right now with McNichols back, Foreman looking good, and a mediocre matchup week 15 at Pittsburgh, I think it's safe to drop Hilliard. And Derrick Henry's only 2 or 3 weeks away from returning as well. So right here, he's a guy maybe you want to stash on your bench, but really there's no reason to after we saw the way the game went yesterday for the Tennessee Titans. So that's a few running backs I would drop here for week 15 of the fantasy football season.